Hi, I'm Noel. This is Antonio from Boxtail Soup. We are, of course, still in the studio getting on with the making for casting the runes. We've had a very productive week, actually. We've got quite a lot done now that I stopped to look at it all. I'm going to be doing most of the talking this week because Antonia is a little bit...
I don't really have any more voice left. I think I caught a cold, and then it was my sister's hen do on Saturday night, and I don't really drink, so it's nothing to do with that, but we were in a loud place. I was having a conversation at shouting volume, so I think that combined with my cold has left me with this ridiculous voice.
So I'm going to try and do most of the talking if I can.
It's really weird for me because I basically never lose my voice. I'm very
sure
careful.
you'll want to chip in, but I'll try and rescue you if you start to struggle. So let's start with the puppets, and obviously, as you can see, we've made some good progress on those. You would have seen Gayton, the assistant, and the librarian, Mrs. Johnson, last week.
And both of these actually just in a different state.
Yeah, sure. What I mean is that those guys, I think, were kind of in a finished state last week because you've done all the hair for them. These two were almost there, but they needed a little extra doing. I think you've also... Did you do all of the back of Karswell and stuff this week as well? Have you covered all the handles?
Yeah, do you know, I can't quite remember what was what, but I think so.
So I'll just pick him up to begin with.
Take that out.
Shall I pop the hat off?
Yeah, do.
Start, yeah. So as you might remember, we were explaining that Karswell has to be operated slightly differently. So he doesn't have a moving mouth like most of the other puppets, and so he's not operated in the same way. So we've put a handle in here into the back, which just means that it's easy to hold on to the head and move it around in quite a natural and you can make very fine movements with it, which is quite important. You've done the eyebrows for him.
Give him the vibe. That took a little bit of time.
That was a while to work out, wasn't it? Because it's
really important because obviously it completely changes the expression. So you can either make somebody look way sweeter, which is what was happening slightly, or comically angry. So it was a fine line. Yeah.
It's another one of those little things, like the eyes, where a very small change in moving them out or in, or the angle makes a massive difference. And then, of course, he needed to have a hat. This was a bit of a challenge to make. When I started to look into it, actually, you know, a trilby or a fedora, they have quite a particular shape, but it's quite an unusual shape because they're supposed to have this kind of teardrop indentation at the top, and then you want it sort of pinched in at the front. So this is all built from a cardboard frame. I think I've got a photo of that as well.
You can see remnants of it underneath.
Yeah, it took a while to put together, and then you've covered it brilliantly. You know, I think it's got an absolutely lovely shape, and it still fits his head really well as well.
That was the tricky thing, making sure that I didn't stop it from being able to actually go on.
Yeah.
We wanted it to look slightly well loved. Oh, it's coming back a tiny bit. Slightly well loved and a bit worn. So that's why it's got the sort of bend down and the slightly bent up bits there.
Yeah, which I love. You know, to me that gives it that soft impression of fabric, and obviously we'll put some colour on that as well. So really pleased with that. And then there's the train conductor rather, who again really pleased with. So his hat obviously needed to be an appropriate hat for his job. If you turn him to the side, you can see that there's only the part of it that needs to go on his head, because obviously we didn't want to extend that, and you know, it would seem odd. Then it would bring attention to the fact that you've only got the front of the face there. So it's just the front of the hat. That shape wasn't too bad to make, and I think it looks great. And what I really love about it is I love what you've done with the hair that's just kind of coming out of the front there. I think he looks absolutely fantastic.
We needed him to look, you know, so how he's bad. In fact, if you take his hat off, he looks quite funny. Because obviously I haven't finished it, because if I gave him a full head of hair, the hat wouldn't fit on, and he's never going to take the hat off. But we wanted it to have the same quality as the beard, whereby it looked a little bit like he's just sort of slicked it out of the way. You know, he's doesn't take care of it maybe as much as others might. Yeah. But it's got a sense of hair underneath.
Yeah. He looks a bit kind of, you know, world weary and a bit, you know, tired of the grind. So yeah, I'm really pleased with him. I think that looks great. And they are, as far as the heads themselves go, that means all of them are finished, doesn't it?
That means all of them are now ready to have bodies attached to the back, and they've got the fitment in at the back for the body to hang off. And then we were looking at the lamps.
Yep. So the lamps, as you may remember from the drawing, we're going to have 4 kind of sort of reminiscent of street lamps, and they will be on wooden stands. And then we've got this sort of little this cuff that's going to go over the top of the stand, and then the lamp.
It's got a kind of block in there to basically, we wanted to add extra height to the stands, but make sure the stands themselves still fit in our trunk. And then that's the arm of the lamp.
Yeah, we've been referring to these as the eyebrows of the lamp.
Yeah, and then you sort of go fishing for the lamp head. Yeah. And then we've got the lamp bulb cover, which goes on like that.
It looks great. And the parchment, which is just baking parchment that we've got in there, adds a little bit of diffusion to the light, but also because the light is kind of concealed and pointing straight down, the fact that it hits the parchment and lights it up gives you more of a sense that, you know, it's easier to see that the light's on. Looks like it's illuminated.
And we have an option to add a kind of extra piece, which is a bit tricky to show, but it kind of goes up and around.
Whether
like that.
We sort of add a kind of slightly cage-like little bit at the bottom.
Which we haven't decided about yet. We might or might not do that.
Yeah, not entirely sure. So we'll have a little play with that. But this, you know, the shape itself and the kind of the way that they stand and the way that they look when they're on top of the wooden stand, I'm really pleased with it. Looks good.
They'll be coloured, obviously. They'll be sprayed in, but it's all very satisfying because yet again there are a lot of magnets involved.
Lots of magnets. Yeah, and then I've been working.
Sorry, Karswell. Sorry, no.
Nearly got me with the eyebrow.
Sorry.
I've been working more on the door, of course, and because it's so big, I can't really, you know, it wouldn't be very easy to show you from this position. So I just stuck a phone up earlier on, and I've filmed a little bit that we can have a look at now. So I'm just going to try and give a quick explanation of what's happening with the door frame. So as I said before, it's all got to collapse down small enough to fit into the trunk. So these 2 side parts here, they fold in half, and they're no longer than 87 centimetres, so that they'll fit in the trunk. The top part here, this is a rigid joint that just slots on top, and this again is 87 centimetres, so it'll fit inside the trunk. And we've got 2 separate hinged bits to hang the door from. And then on the back here, we've got a couple of kind of feet coming out that are weighted down. And then, as weird as this looks on the side here, you won't be able to see this because it will be covered by the sort of side panel, the sort of lintel thing. This is basically to try and keep the door upright when the actual panels of the door are being put on it, because obviously as you put the panels on, it begins to add weight, and the door then wants to list in that direction. So the door panels are made out of foam board, and I've got ridges of different thickness of foam board, some of which will sit on this like a little lip, and then there are magnets drilled into the wood, and also magnets here in the foam board that will stick together and hold it onto the door. So although I'm going to obscure myself, I will now stick these up on here, like so. So the first one goes on there in quite a satisfying way. And I anticipate that these will need a little bit more now. I wouldn't just rely on magnets in the show to hold them in place. I'm going to put some Velcro straps on as well, just to secure them. I'm hoping that the magnets will basically hold them to the frame. The Velcro is just there in case they slip at all, to prevent them from moving around. So this one then goes on like so. And then we've got number 3 down here and there. And then finally at the bottom, we've got number 4 down there. I'll just come around the front. So, as you can see, they all slot in quite nicely. It was a little bit of a pain to line them up because, you know, naturally, because it's quite soft wood, there is some, it's not absolutely 100% straight in every place. So this bit of the door arm that's sticking out, for example, isn't quite level. So I had to make sure, be very careful that the bit on the back of this piece of foam board lined up with it quite nicely so that it would sit on it properly. They are magneted to each other, so that gives them a little bit of extra support as well as being stuck to the pieces of the frame. This one here at the moment, as you can see, it's got a little bit of movement in it, and that's because currently it's only stuck to the panel above it. I will put some magnets in to stick it to the door, and I'm also going to make sure that it's got a couple of straps so that it can't just drop off. But yeah, you know, all in all, I'm reasonably pleased with it so far. I think we should be able to open it without too much trouble. I've had to add a little bit of weight on that back foot because, again, once it's open, all of the weight is over on this side and all of it is pulling forwards. So I found that the one weight that I had there wasn't enough to compensate for that. So the door was beginning to fall forwards. I mean, it won't be open for very long at any one point in the show, so hopefully that shouldn't be too much of a problem. We'll just make sure we've got enough weight on the back. But hopefully now, when I open it, yes, looks to me as though that weight is enough to do the job. So the door opens nicely and closes nicely as well. So I'm pretty pleased with how it's come along, and pretty pleased that we could work out a way that it can still all pack down into the trunk. So that's our door. Again, really pleased with that. The problems that we had along the way with it listing and shifting, fingers crossed, it seems to be working okay with the solutions that we've come up with.
Again, it's really satisfying because it goes on really well with the panels going well with the magnets.
Yeah, so many magnets.
You've done such a great job of making it.
So many magnets.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, because for poor Noel, every time with these large pieces, he has to, as we always say, you know, there's always this extra added thing of them needing to fold down to pack away. And it's not just that, though, I realised. It's also the fact that we can't go into a venue. We're not there for however long. We can't bolt it to the floor, which would make something so much easier.
Yeah.
Because you could just make it stationary. You know, it then stays where it's put.
Well, even if you could put it on a plate or on a boom plate or something, or
Exactly.
you know, anything where you could screw it or bolt it or hold it down.
But I think it looks really sturdy, given that it's made of so many pieces.
Yeah, I'm so far, you know, I accept that there may be other issues that arise, but so far I'm really pleased with how it's worked out. The pieces for the door, they stick on really nicely. The way that they're hanging on those arms means that they've got a little more support, which is great. So yeah, I'm just going to put the finishing touches on that, the last little connectors between them, onto that today, and then I can start to work on the detail.
Excuse me, sorry.
So that's it, more or less. Like I say, I feel like we're making really good progress. I'm pleased with how we're getting on. As ever, I'm going to take over your little end bit. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you have been enjoying the videos, do give us a thumbs up. Leave us a comment if you've got any questions. We'll try and answer them, and possibly even subscribe. I will also add that, of course, the show Casting the Runes is on sale for the Edinburgh Festival. So some people have bought tickets already, which is absolutely amazing. If you know anybody who's going, send them our way. If you're coming yourself, book your tickets. We'd love to see you there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.